Get ready for an intergenerational dialogue with SDG advocate Mirza and a panel of the new class of young leaders for the SDGs, convened by the Secretary General's Youth Envoy, sharing their vision for a more sustainable world.
SDG Advocate session. Today's theme is planet, and I'm honored to be hosting this intergenerational dialogue. My name is Mirza, and I am an advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals and a UN Environment Program Goodwill Ambassador. I'm honored to be joined today by three of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, young leaders for the Sustainable Development Goals. These are incredible leaders, and I'm extremely proud to have been a member on the high-level selection committee that helps select and appoint each of you. So welcome to all three of you. I want to give you all, each one of you, the opportunity to introduce yourselves. Please, let's start with Mariama. You'll have to unmute yourself, Mariama.
Thank you, dear. Greetings from Senegal. My name is Mariama Djambony Badji. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DNA, a construction company. And here in Senegal, we work with, we promote ecological construction, and we work with local and natural materials in order to reduce the greenhouse emissions due to buildings, and in order to reduce the impact of these constructions on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome. Really looking forward to hear more from you. İlayda, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dia. Super excited to be here with you. No big deal, in a panel with extremely cool people, so I'm keeping it cool. Anyways, I'm İlayda Eskitaşçıoğlu. I'm 26. I'm from Turkey, currently based in Istanbul. I'm a human rights lawyer and attorney too, and a PhD student researching on the human rights responsibilities of multinational corporations. I'm a proud feminist and a member of the Beijing Plus 25 Global Youth Task Force that is led by UN Women. And 4 years ago, I founded this small NGO here in Turkey named We Need to Talk. We basically fight against period poverty and period stigma in the Middle East. We aim to provide menstrual products to women and girls living in remote rural areas, refugees, mostly Syrian refugees, and seasonal agricultural workers. And although I'm a millennial struggling with adulthood quite often, I'm very optimistic and motivated to work for a better, sustainable world together. Yeah, that is me. Thank you.
I see that. Thank you so much for joining us, İlayda. Loay, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Dia. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for making me and my fellow young leaders a part of this conversation. So my name is Loay Radwan. I'm 21 years old from Egypt. I'm an environmental engineer and an activist. I'm also a member of the Mediterranean Youth Water Network, and I'm the youth ambassador for the Foundation of Climate Restoration. Over the past years, I've worked on many different projects to solving different environmental problems. Currently, I'm working on my project called G-Beetle. So in G-Beetle, we help farmers adapt to the effects of climate change through using rovers and sensors technology. Simply, we collect the data about the plants and the soil through the sensors, and then we combine them with the weather forecast and give the farmers recommendation to help them in rationalizing their water consumption and preserving their crops from any type of infestations. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Loay. Welcome to this conversation. As all of you will see, these are young, enterprising, incredible young people who are walking the talk, who have chosen to make a difference and are doing so in their own remarkable, authentic way. We're here, of course, today to talk about solutions for our planet. And these young leaders represent those solutions, which is why I'm so excited to be having this conversation with them. But before I get into a conversation with them, I'd like to set the context. I think this year has been, we will all agree that this year has been a turning point for our climate. And we've seen devastating fires, at an unimaginable scale in Australia, in the Amazon, and the United States. I mean, a week ago, we saw those horrific images emerging from California. The World Meteorological Organization has confirmed that the world is set to see the warmest 5 years on record, with the Arctic sea ice at lowest levels. At the same time, emissions are set to drop somewhat, and skies in many countries have cleared because of this lockdown. But this has only been possible for a very brief amount of time. And unfortunately, alongside this change that we witnessed, the small relief that the environment has experienced because of this lockdown, the reality is also the fact that this devastating global pandemic has stolen hundreds and thousands of lives and has caused untold economic pain. This year has also shown the world in stark and painful detail how climate change affects all of us in the most fundamental ways. Humans that are encroaching on animal habitats will bring us into contact with more exotic zoonotic diseases, raising the prospect of future devastating outbreaks. The fires that have sent toxic smoke across the oceans have darkened skies across continents. Climate change is already having significant effect on health, on education, on decent jobs, on gender equality, and on peace and conflict. Essentially, climate change impacts all of us. And it is our broken, failed relationship with nature that has led us to where we are, which is why it is so critical for us to engage with solution seekers. And that's the reason why we are having this conversation today. I'm going to, in this spirit, start off with asking questions of each one of you. And there's going to be a common question that I'm going to ask all three of you, so take turns to answer, and then I will ask individual questions to each one of you. Are you ready? Okay. You know, one thing that concerns me is that sometimes the climate agenda seems to be somewhat separate from the SDGs. And this is something that we were discussing, that, you know, we may fall back on the SDGs when in fact we should be gaining more momentum than ever before on the Sustainable Development Goals and 2030 agenda. They're obviously intertwined. And how do you think we can make the SDGs relevant to climate activism and activists, including those who may not be deeply involved? Mariama, you want to start?
Yeah, dear. Thank you for this question. And to make the SDGs relevant to climate activists, I think that first we need to introduce the SDGs and their importance in the fight against climate change. So we can implement training and awareness programs for these activists, or also we can invite them to take part to actions about the SDGs, so they know about the real impact. Also, we can use social media to promote the work about SDGs in order to sensitize and to inspire more people to join the movement.
Wonderful, thank you. We do believe, as an SDGs advocate, we do believe that the SDGs are not a policy, they are solutions. Every single SDG offers solutions. İlayda, would you like to elaborate on this?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dia. I definitely agree with you. I think I do see SDGs not as idealistic, unrealistic ideals. They are a guideline, they are a map for us. And we don't have a lot of time left, honestly. Like 5 years have passed. We are 1/3 in the middle of the way. So definitely we do need to kind of focus on the solutions. And I do love this very simple short slogan, less talk, more work. So I definitely agree with you. Exactly.
Loay, how do we include and encourage more climate activists to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals and help them understand that these are a powerful tool, and a powerful set of solutions that they must embrace?
Well, thank you, Dave, for your question. First, the activists need to understand that all of the SDGs affect each other, and all of the SDGs are connected some way or another. So when we're working for climate action, we're actually working on the other SDGs, and when we're working on the other SDGs, we're working on climate action. So they need to understand that it's all connected. Everything in the environment is connected. So yeah, if they want to help in fighting or advocating for climate change, they can work on the other SDGs as well, finding solution for the other SDGs, and that's going to help in solving the climate change problem.
Wonderful, thank you. You know, there's a term that has become very popular, climate justice. And I'm interested to see how each of you conceives this concept. And could each one of you tell me what it means to you and how do you believe we can achieve climate justice? Do you want to start, Loay?
Sure. Climate justice, climate change actually affects everyone, and in a way or another, yet we see the people that are most affected are the unprivileged and the poor, and they are the first and the worst to suffer. Actually, I just read a report 2 days ago from Oxfam. They said that the richest 1% of the world population cause double the emissions of the 50% of the poorest people. Yet the poorest people are the most affected. So I guess climate justice means that everyone should be responsible for their emissions and should be held accountable for what they did. And the poor and the unprivileged people should have a voice and should have a part of the decision-making process. Thank you.
Wonderful. İlayda, would you like to elaborate on this?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Dia. So to put it very shortly, in my opinion, no one is immune from climate change. We do know that. Climate crisis is being felt by everyone, but not equally. Some people, and now I need to put on my feminist hat, mostly women and girls, are disproportionately affected by it, while some people have the privileges to protect themselves a little bit from the impacts of climate change. So climate justice is the demand starting point is the acknowledgement of this social injustice and its reflection on the climate crisis that we are all experiencing today. So it's just this acknowledgement of the social context we're living in, basically.
Absolutely. I think it's important for acceptance that there are people who are disproportionately impacted by climate change. And these are the most marginalized, most vulnerable communities in developing parts of the world and many parts of the world. And I live in a country that is facing this crisis every day. So thank you for that, İlayda. Mariama, would you like to add, please?
Yes, well, Dia, thank you. And an important concern related to climate justice is that those who are least responsible for climate change suffer its gravest consequences. To me, climate justice means the fair treatment of all people and the freedom from discrimination in the creation of policies that address the climate change. And I strongly believe that by working together, we can create a better future for present and next generation. Thank you.
I think each of your points also helps me and gives me the opportunity to highlight how essential and critical it is for us to have stronger environmental laws for climate justice. This is something that unfortunately is lagging far behind. We do not have strong enough policy and stronger environmental laws genuinely act on climate and provide climate justice. Okay, so now we're going to get into the individual questions. Are you all set? Mariama, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
How important, you're into construction, you're building, right? And one of the sustainable development goals is sustainable cities and innovation. Communities, right?
Yes.
So yes, it's a combination of innovation, cities, and communities. Tell me how difficult, or especially in countries where you want to encourage more people to build back better, and build infrastructure that can withstand changing climate. How difficult is it, and how important is sustainable building and infrastructure?
Well, thank you, dear. We know that modern construction has come to the fore for its environmental impact, not only on land, but also on climate. This is a problem that also has local consequences because now when we build infrastructure, our decision, just as when we buy a product, a cell phone or something like that matters, our decision to build this infrastructure matters more than ever. And today, due to the impact of buildings on the environment, sustainable construction is the best alternative for all countries who want to build better. Because sustainable buildings are designed to help reduce the overall impact on environment and human health during and after the construction. Because those buildings, while ensuring the quality of life of people, it ensures optimal energy performance because we can use renewable energies, solar energies, we can use natural materials, local resources as much as possible. And in particular, it aims to preserve resources, raw materials, energy, waters to combat global warming, to limit waste and other pollution, to promote the comfort of and health of people.
I'm curious, can you give me an example of, because I've seen this, especially when you travel into different parts of India, there are local indigenous communities that have for centuries built a certain way, and their homes are the most sustainable and most wonderful. In fact, in the warmest environments, there you walk into their homes and they're so cool. There's never any need for fans or air conditioning. Can you give me some examples of what you mean when you say local material and local design?
Okay, when I talk about local materials, I talk about the earth because we can use earth to make bricks or because there is different techniques of urban constructions. So we have bricks, we have adobes, we have rammed earth, and these are techniques we can use to build sustainable houses, sustainable infrastructure, and others.
I want to quickly add one more question. How difficult is it for you to convince people to adopt this style of construction, this sustainable construction? Do you find it hard to convince people?
Yes. For example, here in Senegal, every time I talk about ecological construction, I'm asked if it's cheaper. So yes, the cost is a significant barrier, but people have to understand that the construction cost depends on the needs and the desire of the client. And with urban constructions, we can make low standing, medium standing, and very high standing or very high standing. So it really depends on that standing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
Very insightful, and keep doing what you're doing. İlayda, you work more on the human rights side, and I want to know what are the impacts that you have seen of climate change in your work and research. Give me examples, because it's always good to associate what you've understood with an experience or a human story.
Yeah, sure, Dia. Thank you so much. Okay, so honestly, I'm a human rights lawyer and a gender equality advocate, but because climate crisis is so urgent, I decided to educate myself, and I'm trying to look at it from a gender perspective and a human rights perspective. I can say one thing: climate change is definitely one of the most urgent and prioritized issue in human rights law academia right now. And I can talk a little bit about it from my research experience and my work with rural women in Turkey, Balkans, and the Middle East. So we have said this before: women and girls are really disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate crisis. I will give you a very simple example. A recent report on gender and climate justice found out that in floods that happen due to climate change, the number of people who drown are disproportionately women and girls. This is basically because women and girls are not taught how to swim, because swimming is not seen as a ladylike activity. So it seems like a little detail, but it actually costs human lives. So climate crisis definitely has a gender aspect to it. And in addition to that, it is a big, this crisis we're experiencing is a big threat to a lot of fundamental human rights, like most importantly, the right to life, the right to health, socioeconomic rights, and the right to an adequate and healthy environment. But just a little thing that I need to say, I do not believe as a human rights lawyer that our national and international law systems are ready to accommodate this crisis. They're predominantly focusing on what states should do. And I believe we need to have private sector on board as well, like business sector on board. If we need to prevent these human rights violations, we need to hold corporations accountable as well on how their business operations are having an impact on the climate change. Yeah.
One of the things that I realized during this global crisis, and it's also been evidenced and we're talking about it, the rise in domestic violence. So there are serious social issues pertaining to gender that increase when there is a crisis like this, and it is connected to the environment and climate. And it was very interesting, your point on how women are not encouraged to learn how to swim. I don't think many of us would have thought of that. Is there, do you think that the law is ready to deal with the impacts of climate change? And, right from migration to conflict resolution to equitable sharing of resources, how do you see national and international law responding? I know you did mention that the law is not ready, but how do you see a change? Do you believe more needs to be done, and what is that?
That is a wonderful question, and I wish I could say that national and international legal systems are ready, but not at all. It is a common pattern that law is always a little bit behind and a little bit slow to react to innovations and recent large-scale changes. Like we have seen that in terms of internet and social media. But this is an urgent problem that we definitely need to address. In my opinion, there are two major problems with international law's too slow reaction. One is the adoption and enforcement of international documents. So Paris Climate Agreement is a very important document in these terms, but there are still states to this date that haven't signed or adopted the agreement, including my country, Turkey, unfortunately. Also, just because a state has adopted the Paris Climate Agreement and has shown minimal commitment doesn't mean they take proper action, unfortunately. Climate change is often seen as a policy issue. And yes, we see more and more national action plans, but very few legally binding frameworks. But having said this, there are wonderful developments we're hearing from all around the world, thanks to a bunch of determined climate activists and strategic litigation. For example, very recently, last year, there was this case named Urgenda case, which is a historic victory for climate justice. In this case, for the first time, the Dutch government was held accountable, and citizens established that their governments has a legal duty to prevent dangerous climate change. That the government has an obligation to urgently and significantly reduce emissions. So there are developments like this, but in terms of lawmaking, we are far, far behind.
Well, many more countries have to follow suit, and hopefully your activism and your action will inspire them too, along with the millions of young people who are so committed and inspire me every day. Thank you for that. Loay, let's come to you. You're on the technical side of things, and you have focused on technological solutions to the challenges posed by climate change. How have you seen implementation and uptake at the ground level of technology to solve these problems?
Thank you, Dea, for your question. Well, the effects of climate change are unpredictable, but with the help of technology, we can somewhat predict these changes. And so we can warn the farmers and the people and help them cope with these changes, like variation in the rainfall, variation in temperatures. So in a way, technology can help us in analyzing and preserving our resources, our crops. So yes, technology provides us with the knowledge we need to solve and adapt to the challenges posed by climate change. And we see in the last period, there is a rise in the field of environmental sciences and environmental engineering, trying to combine the technology and the science, solving environmental challenges. So yeah, technology can help us greatly in detecting and predicting these changes.
Yeah, I think if the approach is from a place of empathy and compassion and altruism, a lot of change can be underway and is underway because of just the mindset of people who are applying themselves to technological solutions like yourself. Thank you for that. I have one more question for you, and this is obviously going to be the last of the individual questions. If you have any questions for me, you may please go ahead and ask, but right after my last question to Loay. Have you found any tension between using new technology and traditional methods or knowledge to address climate issues? Have you been able to integrate the two at all?
Yes, of course, we found the tension between using the old technology and using the technology and the traditional methods, especially when we're dealing with farmers in the rural areas. They refuse or don't believe that technology can provide them with a way or an easier way and a faster way to help them in their agriculture. So they somewhat prefer to stick with their old ways and stick with the ways they are familiar with. But we give them the results, we show them the results, we show them that technology can be a way to help them do things more efficiently and help them conservation of their resources, help them conservation of their water and their crops. So yeah, when they see the results, they start to get convinced, they start to really know that technology has a possible easier way and faster to continue with their agriculture.
Can you give us an example of technology that you've introduced that has helped bridge this gap?
Yes, well, of course. So there's a common problem of infestations when one plant is infested in the field. Usually the infestation spreads throughout all the field and most of the crops goes to waste. But through using technology, we can detect when a plant has an infestation. We can get an early detection of these plants so we can remove it from the field before the infestation spreads through the whole yield. So yeah, technology can help us in the early detection of these infestations, and so we deliver the farmer the recommendations and warn them that there is a problem here, so they can solve it before it gets too late.
Wow, that's fantastic. It seems like a very simple thing, but can mean a lot to a farmer and make a very, very big difference to yield, to their economic progress, their security, and their right to life. That's wonderful. Oh my God, this is so exciting. I'm so happy I got to meet all three of you, even if it's virtually. Isn't it amazing that we're getting this chance to connect and come together and hopefully inspire many more people to understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are? And I'm very excited about the work that the three of you, along with the rest of the youth leaders, are going to do on ensuring more people discover what the Sustainable Development Goals are and adopting them. Do you have questions for me? One question. I think we have time for one question for me. Yes, İlayda.
I can shoot one question.
Sure.
All right. And by the way, yes, this panel has been an awesome experience. I'm so glad to be speaking about important issues with you guys. So, okay, Dia, here's my question. This is more of a personal question or an advice, but you are an advocate for the protection of environment, climate action, and wildlife. And I bet even you have had experiences in which you or the causes you fight for were not taken seriously from time to time. I do come from a culture in which age is incredibly important, and when you're young, you're generally not being taken very seriously. So I often experience and receive the typical, oh, good for you, you're so inspirational reaction without any proper support. How do you overcome this? How do you make sure people take you seriously?
Well, I think you said this. Action is the word. You just keep doing what you have to do. And you keep expressing your faith and your belief in the change that you absolutely believe is necessary. When I started off, İlayda, there were very few people in my industry or even within my country in mainstream media who were talking about environmental action or conservation or wildlife protection. And I would be mocked. They would call me an activist, and they weren't being complimentary in saying so. But that never deterred me from doing what I had to do. I just kept doing the work that I had to. I'll give you another small example. So when we were working on the Beat Plastic Pollution campaign a few years ago, when I discovered the scourge of plastic and the devastating impact it's having on the environment, I decided to do away with drinking water from single-use bottles. And I would carry my metal bottle everywhere I went. Airports, seminars, meetings, shoots, wherever I was, my bottle would go with me. And people would make fun, and be like, what's wrong with you? It's okay. It gets recycled. And I'd be like, no, I'm going to do it. So I think action is the magic word, and commitment and consistency is something that no one can take away from us. So long as we are driven by what we care about and we act on it and we keep an open mind and we continue to learn. Because I think that's another problem. Sometimes people who are activists tend to become very closed-minded and are not listening to varied voices. I think it's very important to listen and engage with everybody, and then, of course, eventually do what your heart tells you to do. The other thing that I experienced, and I know it wasn't included in your question, but a lot of people are experiencing climate anxiety. Especially young people who feel like there is too much happening and they're too overwhelmed. I would urge you to redirect your attention towards those who are making a difference and become a part of the solution. Because the moment you become a part of the solution, the problem stops to, affect you as deeply. Yes, of course, it will always affect us, but at least it won't destabilize our efforts, So I think it's great to form a community, work together, and look to each other for strength, because our community is growing rapidly every day, and it's wonderful. With this, our time has come to an end. It's been such an honor, such a pleasure. Keep doing the good work, and thank you to all of you who joined us in this SDG interaction. And we look forward to further engagement from many more people. Do you have any closing words? Each of you can take a turn and go ahead and share your thoughts, your final thoughts.
We are making a fight. We young people are having a fight. It's a fight for every human being, as far for the well-being of the planet is something that matters. And we must preserve our resources, save the planet, and the most important, we must join our forces, because it's all of us fighting for the next generation. And the most important, most important, everyone must start now, because the time to act is now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariama. Loay, do you want to go?
Yes, I want to say that now is the time for all of us to cooperate. Politicians, business leaders, youth, men, women, children, all of us need to cooperate together, to work together to achieve the 2030 agenda, so that we can save our planet before it's too late, like Mariama said, because we don't have much time left. Thank you.
Thank you, İlayda.
Yeah, just some little advice for fellow young people out there. We have created this wonderful momentum. It's time to build on this. Let's raise our voice prouder and louder to save the planet. That is all.
Thank you so much. I just want to wrap this up with something that I've understood, and I hope many more people will understand. Human life, peace, progress, health, opportunity, happiness, everything is connected to nature.
Yes.
And how we treat our natural world is going to determine everything about the way we hope to live And I do hope with all my heart that more and more people are going to recognize this link between human life and nature and do all they can to build back better. And I think the most important thing to remember is that the sustainable development goals can be adopted at an individual level. Each and every one of us has the capacity, the potential, the ability, and the heart to believe and take these goals forward, because I really believe in the power of a united people, in the power of a kindred human spirit, and the fact that we're all capable of doing better and being better. And the time to work together is now. And I look forward to collaborating with many more young people across the planet. And I'm very grateful, and I feel such a privilege. It's a real privilege to be a sustainable development goals advocate. So I hope each of you continue doing the good work that you're doing. And for all of you who joined us, thank you very much. And collectively together, we will build back better.